you guys answering quiz questions wrong, right? So we got that taken care of. You guys did great with your quiz, okay? Now the concern with your homework, the trend that I'm seeing, there's a lot of late homework. So now you guys are losing unnecessary points because homework is late. Listen, I love to give nines and tens out. So help me help you get a better grade, okay? Just turn it in on time. You guys will be fine. All right. Any questions on that part? All right. So let's check in on how you guys did with engaging your clients in the activities of symptom monitoring. Remember, you guys could have done depression checklist, anxiety checklist, anger diary, GAD-7 PHQ-9. Any questions on that? Or did you guys feel like it was kind of easy? You fell into it naturally? You had the apps you could use? I saw a lot of apps. How do you guys feel? What's your feedback on homework last week?
I really enjoyed it, and my client enjoyed it because it was able to help her identify why she is feeling the way that she's feeling. So it was good. I got good feedback from her on it.
Good, good. And remember, you guys, keep up. Don't just do this and introduce this stuff to your clients one time, right? We're monitoring their symptoms. So we want to continue to use this with them. All right, who else has some feedback from week 5 of symptom monitoring?
I had a client who thought that he maybe needed a higher dose in his medications. So I introduced the How We Feel app so that way he could monitor his symptoms and utilize any skills that the app has to offer to try that first. And then if so, then he can go to his doctor and be like, well, here's all I've been feeling all the last month or so or whatever. And so he seemed excited about that. I did follow up with him on that, and he's struggling to continue to monitor, but I had him do it with me during session. So there was like a follow-up on that as well.
Okay, good. And we may have to, follow up a couple of times, right? But I love the fact that he was so engaged and he's like, yeah, I can show this to my doctor. So he sees the actual benefit of it. That's amazing. That's what we're looking for. Great job, Marlena. All right. Anybody else before we hop in? Are you guys so excited for crisis management? You must be. Okay, well, I'm excited for crisis management. So let's go ahead and jump in. All right. So let's start with just the definition. Okay. So as you see here, crisis is defined as a disruption or breakdown in a person's normal or usual pattern of functioning, which cannot be resolved by a person's customary problem solving resources or their customary skills. Okay. So basically, what we're saying is a crisis occurs when there's an issue, there's some sort of problem, stressor, or some sort of trigger that is going to exceed a person's ability or their capacity to deal with that known stressor. Okay. It's describing a situation where a person is extremely overwhelmed. So that's going to take us into crisis management. So when it comes to crisis management, I have to caution, this is not crisis intervention. So what it actually is it's a wraparound support immediately following a crisis and or to prevent an imminent crisis from occurring. So crisis management, that is allowable for you all to complete as TBS specialists according to the Ohio Administrative Code, because crisis management, that is to occur well in advance when a client is not in crisis. That is why you guys are able to complete this intervention of crisis management. So since it's occurring in advance, this is because at that time you should be gathering information about your client's preferences on their different coping skills. You should be talking about the different supports that they should be able to contact if they need to in the future. And you guys should be like working on different activities, such as creating a safety plan, so that the client can have all of that information on one page for easy access when they need it. Okay. So safety planning, that falls under crisis management and not crisis intervention, because crisis intervention is what a licensed professional would do. So that would be like your therapist or your nurse practitioners. Okay. You're going to hear me say that more than once today. Okay. So just kind of get used to it. All right. So crisis management aims to assist the individual in recovering from the crisis and to prevent serious long-term problems from developing. So a safety plan, that's going to take us to a safety plan. When it comes to you creating safety plans with your clients, you have to make sure that it's something that they can implement. Because if you have things on their safety plan that they can't even do, then that's going to be of little value for them. Okay. So it's important for you guys to know that the safety plan is for your client and not for you. Yes, it is something that is required per ViaQuest policy, but again, it is for your individuals. Um, so, you want to follow up after a crisis. Um, for you in your position, it may look like you all are supporting your individuals to maybe help to identify their triggers, to encourage them to reach out for support. Maybe it's even helping them to learn different coping skills or problem solving skills if the ones that they currently have or have been using have not been working. So basically, we're talking about the things that you're already doing every time you meet with your clients in session, right? So it's not really out of the norm. You're working on those coping skills. You're making sure they have people to reach out to. And now you're identifying that on a piece of paper. Okay, so that's what we're discussing now. So when it comes to crisis management, that aims to reduce the risk of a crisis from happening in the first place. Okay, so by anticipating potential problems and reducing the risk of a crisis from happening, um, and to increase the likelihood that the client remains in a familiar surrounding. So when we talk about that, we're talking about the client's level of care. Okay, and that should go back to you guys learned about level of care in-person smart care training. Okay. So when we talk about that, we want to keep our clients in the least restrictive environment. Um, Basically saying we want them to maintain their placement in the community if it's safe for them to remain in the community. Okay. People tend to function better in a familiar surrounding when they're comfortable. Okay. Now, there are times when a person may need to be hospitalized for safety reasons. However, if such disruptions are avoidable, that's what we would prefer. So, then the last thing we see here is to identify, assess, and intervene. So we want our individuals to be able to return to their prior level of functioning as quickly as possible. So we want to make sure that we are going to lessen any negative impact on any type of future mental health issues. Okay, so just a quick discussion. Why do you guys think crisis management is important for you guys to utilize with your individuals as an intervention?
It really helps how they respond to a situation. If they get into a conflict with a resident, or if they get into a conflict with a service provider, or anytime where like their emotions get escalated, it can help them to take that step back, calm themselves down, and like keep themselves from getting in trouble, keep themselves from making a situation worse.
That's great. You hit it right on the head. Good job, Ricky. Anybody want to add to what Ricky said, or did Ricky pretty much summarize it pretty well, actually? But what are your thoughts? Anybody have any thoughts that are different from what Ricky stated? I'm going to start picking on people because remember, it's a part of TBS University where everyone has to participate, right? So please don't think I'm picking on you, but I am going to start calling on people because it is required for everyone to participate. All right. So just keep that in the back of your mind. All right. So let's get started. Now, before we move any further, just a couple of reminders that you all do not complete crisis assessments. Okay. Again, only nurse practitioners and therapists are able to complete crisis assessments. If you are with a client who is currently in a crisis, you have to call the incident hotline. If you do not have the number, here it is. Remember, you all received that incident hotline what to report card in your in-person training. So you have the phone number on there as well. You need to follow up with your supervisor and everybody who is on your client's team. If it's a therapist, nurse practitioner, guardian, whoever is on your team, you want to make sure you're following up with them. Okay. All right. So when it comes to crisis assessments, again, completed by licensed staff, because they're able to make an appropriate referral, like if your client needs to be hospitalized, or whatever type of care your client may need in a crisis. Safety plans, now safety plans are created with the intention to be used by the client to avoid a crisis. by reminding them, like Ricky said, of their coping skills, sources of support, things to keep them from like maybe getting into trouble or hurting themselves or hurting someone else. Okay. All right. So at the beginning of treatment, so as you read your assessments, as you look at your psych evals, you want to take note of how your client scored on their initial CSSRS. If you're not familiar with what a CSSRS is, that is the suicide screener. You can find that in your client's assessment, or you can find that as a standalone document in the client's chart. You want to make sure you're looking at the initial safety plan, and you're looking at if the client is at risk of harming themselves, if they're at risk of harming others, property, if there's any type of safety concern. You're looking for those type of clues about what might need to be addressed in treatment, okay? And you want to make sure you include that on their safety plan. Now, when it comes to your safety plan, it should be reflective of what is on your treatment plan. It should not be brand new information to your individuals as to what's on their safety plan, because it should be what's on their treatment plan. It should be what you're working on in session, meaning that's what we're going to see in the progress notes. It's the same skills, and that's going to be what is on their safety plan. Now, if you have different coping skills listed on all three different documents, that's going to be a problem for your client because they're going to be confused. Okay. So just make sure you have all the same information on their treatment plan, within their progress notes, and on their safety plan. Now, these next couple of slides, I'm going to read verbatim simply because it comes from the ITP policy. Now, remember, you guys have, excuse me, access to all of ViaQuest policies on Paycor. If you need the instructions again on how to access Paycor and get to those instructions, they were sent out in week 4, but if you still cannot find them, reach out to me. I will send them to you again. But again, I'm going to read this verbatim. So, reminders from the ITP policy. So, when assessing, evaluating, or providing treatment, if there's any indication of a potential risk for suicide, violence, or other risky behaviors, developing a safety plan with the client is crucial and should be done as soon as possible. If identified within the assessment or the evaluation, the safety plan needs to be completed the first session when completing the ITP. Safety plans will be completed within the electronic health record system by all BPBS employees. The therapist will ensure the safety plan is completed no later than the second session after the assessment or the evaluation. If a therapist is not involved, the hierarchy will be the TBS worker, the nurse, then the nurse practitioner to complete the safety plan with the ITP no later than the second session after the assessment or evaluation. If the client has ViaQuest residential services or attends ViaQuest Day and Employment Services, the VPBS employee who is providing services will ensure there is a safety plan within the chart regardless of potential risk and reviewed annually. So basically, because we have a couple of people here, I know everybody isn't LTC. We do have some people who are VDES, right? I know Marlena, you are. Is that correct? Is anybody else IDD?
I think I'm the only one.
Oh, okay. Well, you're my rock star. Okay. So with IDD, if you're working in IDD, then you have to have a safety plan regardless, and you have to make sure you are updating it annually. Okay. For everyone else, if you're LTC, then you have to make sure you are creating that safety plan if there is some sort of lethality concern. Okay. If it's brought up, if it's mentioned, that's when you have to make sure you are completing that safety plan. So just a couple of things, just an overview, that safety plans are required for all clients who have a history or current suicidal or homicidal ideations, must be completed the first session after the assessment or evaluation with the treatment plan. The safety plan is created and updated and reviewed when there's any suicidal, homicidal ideations throughout treatment. So even if it's not within that first session, if it's 4 months from now and something comes up in session, you have to make sure you're doing that safety plan then. Your client needs to have a copy of their safety plan. Cannot stress that enough, okay? I know some people may still complete the safety plan on paper, and if you do, that's perfectly fine. But please remember, you have to leave a copy with the client so that they can use it, okay? And then whenever you go home to do your documentation later that day, you have to input that information into SmartCare. Okay. All right. So what has to be included on your safety plan? I'm sorry, India, did you have a question? India Sims.
Yes, I
Yes.
do actually.
Mhm.
If there is not the CSSRS, if one hasn't been completed, does one need to be completed? Do we need to reach out to somebody or do we do that?
That is for therapy because that's included within their assessment. Okay. So it's not going to be because some of your individuals have a psych eval, especially if you're in LTC. We may not have a therapist assigned to your client. So it's not required that they all have it. So, but if you have any further questions, like you would need to follow up with your supervisor, like for your specific individuals, if they are required to have it. But no, it's not like a policy that all of them have to have the CSSRS.
Okay.
So what has to be included on the safety plan at minimum are your client's triggers, their coping skills. What are you guys currently working on? What are the warning signs that they need to be vigilant of? What are the preferred interventions that are necessary to not just keep your individual safe, but to keep the people around them safe as well? What actions need to be taken to respond to periods of increased emotional pain? Ways to restrict access to lethal means, like do they have to have sharps locked up? Do they have to have medications locked up? Things like that. And then advance directives when available. The very last question when you're doing a paper safety plan is going to have a question in regards to the advanced directives. If you're not familiar with advanced directives, don't worry. That is the next thing that we're going to be going over. Okay. So any questions first before we move over from safety plans, what needs to be included, how you access it? Does everyone know where the safety plan is located in the client's chart? Yes, I see a couple of some head nods. Okay. Just in case you aren't, you open up the client's chart, you hover over clinical documents, click on safety plan. Okay. If they have one already created, you just review it. If you need to update it, you click your little blank sheet of paper to open up a new one. Okay. So that would be your safety plan.
I have a question.
Mhm.
I have a client that actually attempted, and he is currently in Columbus at the hospital. When he comes back and I do the safety plan, am I okay to do it, or does that have to be a supervisor that does it since he actually made the attempt?
No, you definitely, because you're
Okay.
part of the follow-up. Okay.
Okay.
So you're following up with the client, seeing how they're doing, coming up with a plan to keep them safe in the future. That's what the safety plan is. We want to come up, make sure we develop that plan to keep them safe. We want to prevent this situation from happening again. Okay.
Okay.
So your very first session after he comes home, this is what you're doing with him.
All right. Thank you.
No problem. India, I am going to pick on you. I warned you I was going to pick on you today, Miss Hammond. So what happened with your situation with your client today? You told me you had to do a safety plan. What was the issue?
Okay, so just to give like some background, his baseline is him being depressed, self-pity. And what happened is last year he went to the hospital because I believe his appendix is about to explode, and the surgery that they did for him has made him not be able to walk again. And he's just really, really struggling with that. Throughout our sessions, we always agree that he's going to try to get up at least once just to change like his environment because it'll make him feel better. Well, today was as it's always been, except for he said, I wish that I could go back to before I went to the hospital, meaning he wished that he would have just let it happen because death has to be better than being in his bed 24/7 and being miserable. He did not have an intent or a plan to harm himself, but the fact that he even considers that death would be more welcoming than his current situation, I came up with a safety plan together. I notified all the correct people, and we agreed that at least he's going to write down at least one thing per day what he's grateful for. And I explained to him it can be as little as you having a bed to sleep in and you're not being homeless. And I'm going to follow up with him tomorrow, I just wish that so he's a prideful man and he's older, and like throughout his lifetime, he's never had to be codependent on anybody for anything. So him being in this situation, it's hard for him, and he doesn't want to take the suggestion of allowing the aides to do what they do because they know what they signed up for. He just feels like he's a burden to them, and let them get him out of bed. So he some of the ideas that we came up was the one thing he's grateful for once a day, and then also reaching out to his cousin if I'm not available, or the nurse practitioner, and he gets inside his head and he starts having those reoccurring thoughts that life would be better without him. One thing that he knows that he needs to live for, because that's another question on the safety plan, is he knows that his family would be really upset with him if he decided to take the easy way out and not allow them to enjoy him while they can.
Oh, that is so sad. Like, let's
I
start there.
know.
That's very sad, but you handled that the correct way. You did everything you were supposed to do. You made sure he was safe in that moment. You did the safety plan. You made your notifications. Like, there's so many
Yes.
steps in the process, but you handled it very well. So
Thank
kudos
you.
to you. Now,
Thank
please
you.
do not take what I'm about to say the wrong way.
I
Okay.
won't.
Now, unfortunately, that happened before class, so you can't use that progress note to submit for homework. So please don't take that the wrong way. Like, I'm so sorry, but like that, it's what we're talking about, is what we're working on. So I'm sorry that that happened, but that's a great example of like how you would incorporate this intervention and this activity for this week. Okay. So well wishes to him. Hope everything like works out well. Anything else anybody wants to talk about when it comes to safety plans before we move on? Okay. Has anyone created one before? Anyone had to do it? Okay, either here or someone else or somewhere else. Erica, you said yes. What about you, Jackie, Ashley, Rachel? Rachel, you're nodding your head. Easter, anybody else? Yeah. Okay, thanks, Miss Sims. Yep. Okay. All right. So let's move on to advanced directives. So there are multiple different types of advanced directives, meaning we could be referring to a medical advanced directive like a DNR, right? But we're not going to cover that today. So before we move into the two types that we are going to cover, I want somebody to take a shot in the dark and just try to answer these questions. What is an advanced directive, and what does it mean for a client to have an advanced directive?
I'm gonna take a shot in the dark. I have the slightest idea. I honestly never heard it before, but since you
You
mentioned
were
the
in my
DNR, I know
class
what
for
that
in person.
means.
Yes, you do. Easter. You were in
I
my in
don't
person class.
remember.
Okay, say
I
that. Don't
I
say you never
was.
heard it.
Oh, okay. Well, it was a year ago, so I don't
Okay.
remember. I take that
Okay.
back. I don't remember.
All right.
But I do know what DNR stands for, so I must assume that it's along the lines of that. I'm not sure what they will they call them an advanced directive, what they want to do with their life if something was to happen.
Okay. Good guess. Good guess.
Like,
Anybody else?
Like a living will that kind of dictates their wants if they're unable to for like any medical reason.
Okay. All right.
If they're able to like talk and stuff, and then one time they're sick or they're not able to talk, there's something in place in order to handle them like that.
Okay.
I
This
Anybody
is
else?
guessing.
And
kind
that's
of
what I want you to do. I want you to take a guess. Take a
and to
guess.
go
I'm
off
not
what
grading
the
you.
girl said before, it's kind of like your own voice of how far you're willing to take it if you're on life support or anything like that. It was my understanding that when you're in an able mind, you're writing, what your limits are and what you're willing to do.
Good, good, good. Okay. All right. Y'all ready for the big reveal on what an advanced directive is? All right. So when it comes to advanced directives, in advance means ahead of time, and directives are what you tell others to do. So you put it together, advanced directives are what you tell others to do ahead of time. All right. So an advanced directive is going to let your clients make decisions ahead of time before a crisis happens as to tell their family, tell their friends and their treatment professionals what they want them to do for their mental health treatment when they are not able to tell them. Okay, so you guys actually did good. All right. So why is it important to have an advance directive? Having these documents is important because it gives the client more control over their mental health treatment if they cannot tell others what to do. They already feel kind of helpless in a lot of situations. So this is them, just taking some of that control back. Okay. So some questions here to get your client to think ahead to if this is a document that they would want in their life would be to ask them questions like, what would happen if you could not speak for yourself? If you needed treatment, what would you want other people to make decisions about what treatment you received? Or what would you want to make your own decisions? Or would you, I can't read today, or would you want to make your own decisions? There we go. All right. So those are some questions you want to ask your clients. You can even ask yourself these types of questions to see if you need these type of documents in your life. Okay. Now there are two types of advanced directives. The two we're going to talk about today would be the durable power of attorney for healthcare and the declaration for mental health treatment. So there is one of the handouts that I sent you guys in your email earlier is the what if workbook. So please make sure you're taking a look at that document. So the first one we're going to go over is the durable power of attorney for healthcare. It is also known as the healthcare POA. So with this document, this allows your clients to decide what they want for their medical treatment or for their mental health treatment or for both their medical and their mental health treatment, okay? So it can be one, it can be the other, or it can be both. So when it comes to this document, they have the authority to make decisions on treatment options like medication, surgery, or even end of life care. Okay, so those decisions will be covered under the durable power of attorney for healthcare. The second document is called the Declaration for Mental Health Treatment. So with this document, this is for mental health treatment only. So your client cannot make a new declaration of mental health treatment. They can't make changes to it or cancel it. It's valid for 3 years. So if your client has both, the last document we looked at was the durable power of attorney for healthcare, and this document, the declaration for mental health treatment, then this document will take priority, becomes the most important document, and it's what others must follow about your client's mental health treatment. It is important to note that if a doctor and another mental health professional agree, the client's declaration will stay good and the provider should do what it says. Providers will have to follow what it says, even if the client doesn't want them to. So you want to make sure that the client has listed in that document what they actually want, because if they're not able to speak or if they want to make changes to it, they can't. The doctor has to follow what is actually in this document. And again, it is valid for 3 years. So just make sure it's information they really want. So you guys may have to provide some psychoeducation to your clients, okay? But with the declaration of mental health treatment, it lets them make decisions about their medications, electroconvulsive therapy, ECT, or also known as shock treatment. So again, that's where you may have to provide some psychoeducation to your client, like they may not know what ECT is, right? It's going to include things. It's going to make decisions about where they're going to get treatment, what kind of treatment the client wants, who they want to even treat them. Do they have a preferred doctor that they want to see? And it's going to go over the Wellness Recovery Action Plan, aka the WRAP, or a crisis plan. And we're going to go over both of those later today. All right. So here is a website, and due to time, we're not going to be able to pull it up. But I do want you guys to make sure in your free time that you are looking at this website. It's going to give you some sample forms of both of those documents, the durable POA and the Declaration for Mental Health Treatment. This is where you can again find that what if workbook where you can assist the client in writing their advanced directives. So please take some time to look at this website. Now, the what if workbook, even the one that is on that website, it's not a legal document. So no matter what you do with the client within the what if workbook, when you begin working on those documents, it is not a legal document. They have to take some additional steps. They have to get it notarized. It has to be witnessed. All of those things have to take place in order for that document to take effect, okay? Like this says here, if those steps have not occurred, then it's just a piece of paper, okay? Like nothing is actually in effect. This is just assisting them in planning ahead. It's helping them to learn how to advocate for themselves and just plan for a potential crisis because you never know when something could occur and they would not be able to speak for themselves at that time, okay? All right. Any questions on those two documents or advanced directives before we move on? Remember, it's planning for a crisis and event before a crisis occurs. Okay. Any questions on that?
Would helping somebody with like a living will fall under advanced directives, or like is the event of death not like a crisis?
Wait, can you repeat that? What?
Helping somebody with a living will, would that fall under advanced directives?
I'm going to have you put that in the chat and I'm going to have Kim follow up on that. Can you type that in chat for me? Thank you, Ricky. All right, Kim will follow up on that for you. Any other questions?
Yes, I have one. So is this completely their choice?
Yeah.
So we just make them aware of it, or how is this suggested? Is this suggested before the crisis or during the crisis, or when would we implement this?
So it goes back to asking them these types of questions, right? So this is how you could introduce it to them by asking them, if you could not speak for yourself and there's a crisis situation occurring, who would you want to make your decisions? So that could be how you begin to introduce advanced directives to your individuals. Did that help
Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Somebody else asked a question in the comments. She said it might be silly, but I actually would like to know it too. So if that person has a power of attorney, I believe she said, or does this paper, will that outdo their whatever they want done as well for that person?
If they currently have a power of attorney?
So
I think
that
it
was
was
my
the
other
guardian.
question. I put if they had this filled out, but they still had a guardian, and if the guardian disagrees or power of attorney, whatever it is, if they don't agree with the durable power of attorney, like how does that work? If
So
there's
with the guardian, they would trump everything. Like they would have to agree, they would have to sign off.
Okay, so even if you could prove that it was like written when they were in a stable state of mind, once that guardian comes into play, it doesn't matter.
That would have to be like a decision for the courts. Like they would have to battle that part out.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else on how to implement this, how to use it with your individuals? Now, I can say, because again, it is on the safety plan, right? It's the last question on the paper safety plan. I've never had an individual actually say, oh, yes, please, yep, let's do an advanced directive. If I had that happen, I'll probably be like, oh, wait a minute, let me find this what if workbook. Let me talk to my supervisor. Because I wouldn't remember. It's not something that happens on an everyday basis. Okay. So if you are going to utilize this as part of your homework and sessions with your clients, start off by utilizing these questions. Okay. All right. All right. So let's move into the Wellness Recovery Action Plan. So when it comes to the WRAP, that is a recovery model developed by a group of people who had mental health diagnoses themselves, more specifically, Dr. Mary Ellen Copeland. So this has actually been studied and reviewed, and it is now an evidence-based practice, and it is actually listed within SAMHSA. So again, this is by Dr. Mary Ellen Copeland, who was dealing with mental illness herself. And when it comes to if you're completing the wrap, it's going to focus on a person's strengths rather than their perceived deficits. So we are going to watch a video coming directly from Dr. Mary Ellen Copeland. Let me know if you can't hear the sound as it plays.
This is an article that I wrote a long time ago for the Journal of the California Alliance for the Mentally Ill, Remembering Kate, Story of Hope. And there's my mother's picture. I came from a family where my mother was gone for 8 years when I was growing up, and because of really severe mental health issues, I felt like I was in the same trajectory as my mother, and that was of real concern to me. I had asked my doctor, how do people with these kinds of issues cope? And he said, we don't have information on that kind of thing. We have information on hospitalizations and programs and medications. We don't have that kind of information. I realized then that the doctors can't fix me. I'm going to have to fix myself. These are the original studies. And I said, I really want to do a study of how people who experience these kinds of issues cope. Oh my, look at this. What does it feel like to be depressed? What signs indicate that you are getting depressed? The people who supposedly knew more about research told me that I should be just having these ask a question and then have the numbers and people rate things, and I just didn't even know the questions to ask, and I just knew that wouldn't work for me. I had open-ended questions like, how do you get support? What kinds of things do you do for yourself when you're starting to feel really sad all the time? I just thought that this was really powerful information, and the people said, nobody has ever asked us these questions before. Nobody has ever wanted to find this out from us. We had our first workshops at a challenging time because it was the middle of winter. And my purpose in getting together with them was to lead them through a number of strategies for dealing with their mental health issues. And so we spent 8 days doing that, 8 full days. A woman stood up and said, this is all great, this is all good information, but I've been in mental hospitals all across the country and I wouldn't have any idea how to incorporate it into my own life. And so that was really the challenge. We spoke about this challenge, and people said we need a plan. We need something that's going to allow us to organize all that we know so that we can put it to work in our lives. We finished our process, and people, that we had the plan. And I took it home on that last day, pulled out a notebook, and I wrote my wrap plan. I wrote my first wrap plan. And I started using it. And I knew very soon that this was going to make a huge difference in my own life. And if it was going to make a huge difference in my own life, so simply, then it's going to make a big difference in a lot of people's lives. I was asked at that time to speak at various conferences, and I went to a conference and I walked the audience through rap, and they sat there spellbound, and at the end came up to me and said, nobody ever told us before anything that we could do to help ourselves. And that was the beginning, really, of me becoming aware that I needed to spread this, that I needed to share this on a broad basis. And that's when I began to think about writing the book. The key thing in all of my writing is to make it really readable and usable. We're using language that's easily understood and that it's very easy to follow. The main reason that rap has been so powerful and successful is because it was developed by people who actually experience mental health issues. Everything is ours that's in it, and we can adjust it in any way that we find works better for us, and it's a very different approach. And as I look through these pictures and I see so many people who have been part of the movement to make that happen, and I need to think about how far we've come along, how much better off we are now than we were back then. Back in the late 1980s, when they told me that there was no hope for me, I said, wait a minute, my mother got out of that place. She went on and had a rich and successful life. That gave me the inspiration to say, if my mother could do it, and I could do it.
All right. So had anyone heard of rap or used it before with an individual? Anybody familiar with it? Okay. So a part of the rap is the wellness toolbox. So with that, well, first, before we get into that, I do want to say I love her story and I love how she advocated for herself. She's like, you guys can't help me, I will help myself. And she found a way. So I love that she didn't only help herself, but she made sure she put something in place to help people, everybody, everywhere. Okay. So we want to make sure we're utilizing this with our individuals so that they know what they can do, different strategies, tools that they can use in stressful situations. So basically, it's just a collection of ideas, activities, exercises, things that your client can do to help them to feel better. Okay. So you have a whole bunch of different handouts that were sent to you. One of the handouts, it's about 20 pages. We're not going to have time to go through all of them. But you have the introduction into the wellness toolbox. So you're going to go through this document with your individuals and you are going to of course this doesn't want to work today. You're going to go through, have them identify the things that they might like to try. You're going to have them identify the things that they need to avoid so that they can stay well. So when we're talking about things that they need to avoid to stay well, we're talking about things like people, places, things that are triggering for them, things that are going to cause an increase in their stress level. Okay. So this is one of the worksheets from that handout that you can utilize with your individuals. Another part is working on, and if it seems like I'm going fast, we still have a lot to go through. So we're going to look at the triggers on that same document. So when it comes to the triggers, you are going to be, what page is that? Page 7 of that same handout. So you're going to be identifying the triggers for your individuals. Now, some triggers are easy for your clients to identify, things like anniversary dates, holidays, because they know that those dates are rolling around every single year. But they may be surprised by some things that can be triggering for them, like smells or loud noises or being yelled at, things like that. So you want to make sure you help them to identify those. You want to develop a plan so that your client knows what to do if their symptoms start to become more serious. So you can see, I mean, this worksheet is pretty self-explanatory, but there's a trigger, there's the plan that you're going to come up with. Then it goes into when things are breaking down, what do they need to do? What are some signs that things are breaking down? All of that, these are some really good worksheets and resources that you can use for your individuals in session. It also has the, stop, what page is this on? Page 11 has the, we kind of went over that, when things are breaking down. It also has the crisis plan. Now, the crisis plan is different from a safety plan, because not only does it go over who the person wants you to contact or who the person can contact, but it also is going to go over who the person doesn't want to be contacted. Okay, so that kind of sets it apart from a safety plan. It's a little bit more detailed than a typical safety plan. So this could be an additional tool that you can utilize with your individuals, in accordance to if you are completing a safety plan. You can take it a step further. All right. Any questions on that part? Then you have the last document that was sent to you would be the, what is this? The traffic light. So with the traffic light, this is going to help you establish how your client is when they are feeling well and how they are feeling when they are not well. Okay. So you want, the plan is to get them back to the green. Okay. So you have your instructions on how to fill it out on one side, and then you have a blank copy, again, with that you can complete with your clients in sessions. Okay, so that is another activity you can do with your clients. All right, then we have more resources here. There's another website where you can receive more information on the wrap. Any questions on any of those before we move into documentation? That was a lot. You had the, what did we go over today? We had the advanced directives, we had the wrap, and safety plan. I'm like, what else did we cover? Any questions on any of those three before we move into documentation? Okay. All right. So interventions and activities. So this week, yes, you have to select crisis management. Now, for our example that we're going to look at, this person utilized the Wellness Recovery Action Plan with their individual. So that's why that was selected as the activity. So I want to make sure we're looking at this example, because there's a whole lot going on in this example client response section. So it says, Sally engaged in beginning to create a WRAP, which is the Wellness Recovery Action Plan. Sally was able to identify several activities which usually help alleviate her symptoms of depression and anxiety, like listening to music, taking a daily 15-minute walk, doing a crossword puzzle, meeting her friend for coffee in the dining hall. Sally was able to identify some things to avoid, which tend to cause anxiety and bring down her mood, like overeating, staying in her room all day, wearing the same clothes for several days, and watching the news. Sally identified a skill she would like to try, stating people taking the chair yoga class always look so calm. I could probably do that and feel less anxious. Sally was able to identify what it is like when she's well, stating I shower, I do my hair and makeup, and I feel like socializing. I call my friends and family and return emails. I leave my room to attend bingo and art classes. I like to play cards and other games in the activities room. I get up, eat breakfast, and go for a walk. I read my Bible and do my daily devotionals and prayers. When I am depressed and anxious, I don't do those things anymore, and I am like a different person. I don't talk much. Sally reported a decrease in anxiety by the end of the session and stated, I feel a little relief from worry, knowing better what to do and not to do. So there's a lot of different things being highlighted in this, okay? So this client response, it's a great example for your progress note for this week, because it includes the client quotes. It references the client's diagnosis of depression and anxiety. It talks about how the symptoms are exasperated when she's engaging or not engaging in certain activities. It gives the client response to the activity of crisis management. Please don't forget to include the client responses in your progress notes. The details are mentioned and the progress is noted objectively. It's also linking improvement in the client's symptoms by participating in the RAP plan, and it's also planning ahead to avoid a crisis. So do you guys feel like anything is missing? Do you feel like this is a great example? I want to point out, I love how you see where it says what's highlighted. She identified several activities. Please do not fail to actually identify those several activities. You see here it has listening to music, taking a daily walk, doing a crossword puzzle, whatever those things are. What's your takeaway or feeling about this example?
I think it is a good note. It's very detailed. Is very forthcoming on what works and what don't work, and also what to be aware of if she's doing things like not talking or isolating and things like that. Then that means that we need to be helping motivate her and things like that. She needs to be checked on. It was a great note. I think so.
Okay, yeah. So do you guys understand why the things that are highlighted are highlighted? And you see it's
Yes.
elaborated. I'm sorry, go ahead. Somebody was saying something. I didn't mean to cut anybody off. Easter, was that you? You said go ahead. Okay. All right. All right. So the homework section, remember we're looking at the who, what, when, where, and why. Okay. So this example says Sally agreed to continue working on the next sections of her rap by writing down her daily routine as well as her weekend routine, and will share with TBS specialists at next session. Sally also agreed to do 2 items she identified today, which improve her mood over the next 2 weeks, and avoid 2 items which bring down her mood and cause anxiety this week. Feedback. What's your feedback here?
What 2 items is she going to do? And what items is she going to avoid? Kind of be a little bit more detailed on that, I guess.
Yep. Good job, Marlena. Anybody else? Any feedback on what's good or what needs to be added? What they liked about this?
I think it was good that they have it measurable.
Yeah, don't want to miss that piece.
I
Anybody else?
think it was good because it matched what she talked about during their session.
It's that continuation. It shouldn't be brand new information in the homework section, right? That wasn't mentioned or talked about at all in session. So good. Okay. And then lastly is looking towards discharge. Remember, we are always working towards discharge. So as your client is nearing discharge, you're going to always want to reassess their needs again. You're going to plan how your clients will get their needs met after discharge and make sure you're setting them up with those services. We want to make sure we're setting them up for success. In addition to reviewing crisis services available verbally, also include that information on the referrals and disposition tab of the discharge summary. Keep in mind your client's preferences. Your client may be more likely to use the crisis text number versus calling the crisis line if that's an option. You want to make sure you give your client multiple options for natural and formal supports. Okay. And we always just kind of like quickly go over discharge because it should just be a refresher. And it shouldn't be something you're actively doing. All right, so before I get into what I need to discuss, how are you guys going to be providing the intervention of crisis management using the activities we learned about today? The advanced directives, crisis wrap toolbox, traffic light, or safety plan. What are going to be some things that you guys are going to do?
I want to work on the rap.
Okay. Got somebody with the rap. Ricky, what were you going to say?
The traffic light. I feel like that's a really easy one for people to kind of understand and like associate the response with.
And it's visual, right? So that helps with a lot of clients because they can actually visually see, okay, I need to get back to the green. So what do I need to get to the green? All right. Anybody else? How are you going to use any of the activities that we went over today?
I was just going to say, I recently created a safety plan with somebody. So I was thinking I could use the wrap in our next session to just
Good.
kind of continue that.
Follow up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good job, Jacqueline. Okay, anybody need help trying to figure out a client to use any of these activities with? And if you don't feel comfortable bringing it up now, you can shoot me an email. We can brainstorm. Whatever you need to do. I am available. Okay. All right. So, you guys ready to hear what I have to talk about, right? All right. So, as you guys have made it to your halfway point, so yes, yes, so happy about that. A lot of things happen behind the scenes that you guys are not even aware of when it comes to week 5. So at week 5, which was last week, Ann Nash actually comes in and she does the productivity checks. So she's making sure that you guys are all at your required year-to-date productivity standards. She completed that portion yesterday or sometime last week. So you guys are actually all good for your productivity. Everybody is exactly where they're supposed to be or over when it comes to your productivity standards. That is amazing because if you had not been, then you guys, even if you passed this class, this series, you would not be permitted to enter into series 2. So great job. You guys all did an amazing job with that. All right. The second thing that happens on week 5 is all of the TBS instructors, we go through your calendars on SmartCare. You guys didn't know I was doing that, did you? Yes, I checked everybody's calendars just to make sure that nobody is billing during TBS. Great job there again. Nobody was billing during the time that you are in TBS. And I like a lot of you guys have that time blocked off when you're in TBS, maybe as a reminder, hey, I'm not supposed to be billing during this time, right? So good job there. Another thing with that though, what I did see, a lot of people do not have payroll entries for when they are in TBS University. Make sure you still have a payroll entry during that time because you're still at work, right? Okay, so we want to keep track of that, you know? So make sure you do have a payroll entry for when you are in TBS University. But other than that, calendar checks, amazing. Productivity checks, amazing. Your progress notes are getting better, amazing. Quizzes are great. So happy. You guys are doing an amazing job. Now, there is the last part that happens at week 5 is this is the midway point. So we are looking at like kind of like your midterm grade. Okay. So hopefully you guys have all looked at the information that was sent out prior to class that you have to have 80% or higher to sit for the final and to after you take the final to move on to series 2. Okay. You have to have at least 80%. Now, I will be sending everyone their grades so that you know exactly where you are. So everyone will receive an individual email from me, okay? It's going to give you exactly where you are. If you need to come up with a plan, you can like meet with me. But I don't think anybody is really like on the cusp of not passing. But if you have questions about your grade, please reach out once you receive this email from me. Now, due to the time of the day, you're not going to get this email today. And looking at my schedule tomorrow, it may come tomorrow. If you do not get this email tomorrow by the end of day Thursday, if you haven't received your midterm grade from me by the end of day Thursday, please reach out, but you should have it by Thursday at the very latest. Okay? Any questions on any of that? That was a lot. Okay. And
Real quick, sorry. We can talk about it after, but I do have a concern because they just created a new position and cut my caseload in half.
Oh.
So I've got like 18 people, and well, I actually have 15 people on my caseload right now.
Okay.
So I do have concerns about that.
Shoot me an email. We will talk about that. Like, we'll get it taken care of. Okay. But thank you for putting that on my radar. Radar, not radar. Okay. All right. So last thing before you guys are free to go, and I'm sorry we're already over time, but there is no class next week, right? We do not have class because of Labor Day. So woohoo, you guys get a break from me for a week. Now, your homework is still due next week, so you don't have a break from that. I'm going to send out your homework like I usually do. Homework will not be due on Monday because that is the holiday. Homework will be due on Tuesday. But remember, I always put the deadline in the email, okay? Homework is still due next week, even though we do not have class next week. But I will see you back here for class on, September 9th will be the next time I see you guys, okay? But if you have questions before then, please do not hesitate to reach out. India's, Miss Sims, we will get that figured out. Okay, so don't worry about it. All right. Any other questions?
I'm about to email you too what you asked me because Gwen had me doing stuff, so I was behind.
I was just about to ask you to stay behind for a couple of minutes, but okay. All right.
Oh, I can.
Oh, okay. Well then, yeah, if you have 2 minutes, please stay behind. I just want to follow up on something. But everybody else, if there's nothing else, all hearts and minds are clear. You're free to go. If you need me, please reach out to me. All right. See you
All
in 2
right.
weeks.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.